Welcome back to Under Baobab Skies. Tonight, we journey deep into the heart of the Congo, to a place where time is measured not by clocks, but by the steady, quiet rhythm of the loom. Settle in and let the soft rustle of palm leaves and the distant call of a river transport you. We're entering the world of the Congo weaver, a craft both ancient and deeply intimate. Here, time moves with the shuttle, and the pattern that emerges from the warp and weft is like a secret told only to those who listen closely. Tonight, you'll feel the heartbeat of the loom, the focused breath of the weaver, and the stories encoded in every single thread. You see, a Congo textile was never just a piece of cloth. It was memory. It was identity. It was a language that spoke to kings and villagers alike, a visual symphony understood by all. Each intricate design carried the weight of generations. Each vibrant dye held the story of a forest, a river, or a long journey. To touch one was to touch history itself, and to watch it being made was to witness patience personified, a meditation in motion. Our story begins in the gentle morning light, as the sun spills over verdant hills, its rays glimmering on the surface of the river. The village stirs slowly, waking to a new day. In a quiet corner, a weaver sits cross-legged on a low mat, her hands poised, her eyes fixed on the delicate dance of thread over frame. The air is humid and fragrant, filled with the scent of wet earth and freshly pounded roots, the very ingredients for the dyes that will soon color this unfolding story. It's a scene of profound peace and focused intention, a ritual that has begun this way for centuries. Silence is the loom's constant companion. It's a necessary partner in this intricate work. Every sudden sound could distract the rhythm. Every unexpected laugh or cough could become a misstep in the choreography of patience. Yet, in this focused quiet, the weaver is more alive than ever. Her fingers trace motions so familiar they seem instinctual, the result of 1,000 repetitions rehearsed since childhood. Each knot she ties, each pass of the shuttle, holds knowledge passed down not through books, but through oral instruction, hands-on demonstration, and years of careful, quiet observation. It's a legacy held in the muscle memory of her hands. Let's pause here for a moment. Imagine us sitting around a crackling fire, resting beneath a sky full of the stars of memory. Can you picture the weaver's ancestors, their spirits guiding her hands invisibly across the threads? Can you hear them whispering through patterns that are now centuries old? The steady rhythm of the loom mirrors the river's gentle flow, the collective heartbeat of the village, and the very pulse of the Congo people themselves. It's a sound that connects the past to the present, the living to the ancestors. This craft is not for the impatient. The weaver's labor demands unwavering endurance, intense focus, and a quiet, unshakable devotion. It's a process that can take weeks, even months, to complete a single piece. The physical toll is real, the strain on the back, the fatigue in the fingers, but the spiritual reward is immeasurable. This isn't just work. It's a form of meditation, a way of connecting with something larger than oneself. You're witnessing not only the weaving of threads into cloth, but the weaving of culture, community, and continuity into the very fabric of life. As dusk begins to settle, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, the village transitions. The air fills with the aroma of cooking fires, and smoke curls lazily towards the evening sky. Women return from the fields, their baskets filled with raw cotton, the beginning of a new cycle. The loom is set aside for the night, but its presence is still felt. It stands as a silent testament to the day's labor and the enduring spirit of its creator. By witnessing this, you begin to sense the invisible bonds between hands and heritage. The unspoken stories stitched into every pattern, and the sacred rhythm that is both labor and prayer. The Kongo textile is a chronicle, a map of a people's soul. The geometric shapes might represent a family lineage, the path of a river, or the proverbs of the elders. The colors, derived from bark, leaves, and clay, are not just chosen for beauty, but for their symbolic meaning: red for life and transition, black for the spiritual world, white for purity and connection to the ancestors. Each piece is a library of cultural knowledge, a tangible link to a rich and complex history that continues to be woven one thread at a time. Thank you for joining us on this journey tonight. Here under the baobab skies, we hope you felt the quiet power and profound beauty of the Kongo weaver's art. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more journeys into the heart of culture. Until next time, may your nights be peaceful and your dreams be rich with stories. You are now under baobab skies, and the story begins now. Imagine, for a moment, a world waking up before the sun. Dew clings to the riverbanks, and the air is filled with the soft calls of birds cutting through the morning mist. This is where our story begins, in the heart of the Kongo, where a tradition as old as the rivers themselves is passed down from one generation to the next. This isn't just about making cloth. It's about weaving the very fabric of a community, one thread at a time. Today, we're stepping into the world of the Kongo textile weaver, to understand the incredible journey of patience, endurance, and artistry that defines their craft. For a young apprentice, the day starts in the quiet hush of dawn. The first lesson isn't at the loom, but by the water's edge. They learn to harvest the raw fibers, feeling the texture of the cotton, learning which plants will yield the richest colors for their dyes. With small, patient hands, they begin the laborious process of cleaning the cotton. Every single seed, every tiny piece of debris must be picked out. It's a meticulous, repetitive task that can last for hours, teaching a lesson in precision before a single thread is even spun. Imagine the focus required, the dedication instilled from such a young age. Every fiber must be perfect, because in weaving, one small mistake, one tiny imperfection, can unravel hours, even days, of hard work. This is the foundation of deep respect for the material and the process. As the sun climbs higher, the work continues, moving from cleaning fibers to preparing the vibrant natural dyes that will bring the textiles to life. Roots are pounded, leaves are crushed, and barks are boiled in large pots over an open fire. This is a form of alchemy, transforming the humble gifts of the earth into a brilliant palette of reds, yellows, indigos, and blacks. Each color holds a meaning, a story. The apprentice learns not just the recipe, but the spirit of the dye, understanding how it will behave on the thread, how it will change with the light. The air grows thick with the earthy smells of boiling plants, a scent that will forever be linked to their creative journey. The work is physically demanding and often solitary, a quiet communion between the apprentice and the natural world. When the fibers are finally spun into thread and dyed with the colors of the earth, the real test begins at the loom. These aren't the large, automated machines we might picture today. The traditional Kongo loom is a simple yet elegant construction of wood and cord, often low to the ground. The apprentice sits for hours, their back bent over the frame, legs crossed, in a position that requires immense physical stamina. The day's light fades, and work continues under the flickering glow of oil lamps. Hands that were soft begin to stiffen. Eyes strain to follow the intricate patterns taking shape in the dim light. There are no loud corrections or harsh words from the master weaver. A mistake is pointed out with a quiet gesture, a gentle repositioning of the thread. A nod of approval is the highest form of praise. This silent tutelage teaches more than just the mechanics of weaving. It builds character, resilience, and a profound inner focus. The loom doesn't just demand skill, it demands your full presence. The physical toll is undeniable. Shoulders ache from the repetitive motion of passing the shuttle back and forth, from maintaining the tension of the threads. Fingers become covered in blisters, which slowly harden into calluses, one a badge of honor, a testament to their dedication. But within this grueling labor, a rhythm emerges. The constant asterisk thump dash thump asterisk of the beater pressing the threads into place, the smooth glide of the shuttle, the quiet focus of the mind. It becomes a form of meditation. The body, which at first protested the strain, begins to adapt. The hands that ached now move with a life of their own. Muscle memory takes over, and intuition becomes instinct. The weaver no longer has to consciously think about every movement. Their body knows the dance. It's a beautiful transformation where the artist and their tool become one, moving in a synchronized, ancient rhythm. Let's just pause here for a moment. Picture the scene. The fire crackles softly nearby, casting long shadows. The day's work is done, and the weavers rest under a vast, star-filled sky. Think about the challenges they face that we haven't even touched upon. Imagine a sudden downpour, the river swelling with rain, threatening to soak the precious cotton that was laid out on mats to dry. Or picture the relentless heat of the dry season, when the sun beats down without mercy, and every movement is sticky with sweat. This isn't just a job performed in a controlled environment. It's a constant dialogue with the elements. Weaving in the Congo is a dance with nature, a testament to the human ability to create beauty amidst unpredictability. It's a profound lesson in patience, not as a passive act of waiting, but as an active, courageous engagement with the world. Now, look closely at the hands of a master weaver. They are a map of a lifetime of dedication. Worn, yes, but also incredibly precise and graceful. See how they move over the loom, selecting threads, tightening a knot. Their movements economical and full of purpose. Sunlight glints off the richly dyed threads, illuminating a pattern that is emerging from 1,000 tiny, deliberate actions. These hands tell a story of countless dawns, of seasons changing, of knowledge passed down through touch and observation. They hold the memory of every textile they have ever created. In this world, the greatest praise isn't spoken, it's woven. It's seen in the flawless alignment of the threads, in the vibrancy of the colors, and in the soul of the finished cloth. This is the laborious, beautiful beginning of a Congo weaver's life. The journey from a young child picking seeds from cotton to a master creating complex tapestries is incredibly long. It is a path of discipline, where the self is quieted to allow the art to speak. It's a physical ordeal that forges strength and endurance. But more than anything, it is a spiritual practice. The weaver learns to find peace in repetition, to find beauty in struggle, and to find a deep connection to their ancestors, their community, and the very land they walk on. The patterns they weave are not just decoration, they are a language, a history book, a carrier of cultural identity. And it all begins here, in these humble, laborious first steps under the African sun, by the rhythm of the river. The weaver's mind is as much a tool as their hands. Each intricate pattern carries a universe of meaning. Those geometric shapes, the flowing spirals, the sharp zigzags, these were never just for decoration. They were a language, a form of communication understood across generations. Families, clans, and even individuals could be recognized simply by the motifs woven into their garments. As an apprentice, The goal was to replicate these sacred designs with painstaking accuracy, always under the watchful eye of a master weaver. Any deviation, no matter how small, wasn't just a mistake. It could alter the symbolic meaning, disrespect a tradition, or even bring ill fortune. It was a heavy responsibility, woven into every fiber of their being. Imagine the pressure, knowing that the history and identity of your people rested in your fingertips. Each day began with silent calculation, a mental arithmetic that became second nature. How many threads should I count between these two colors? How will this motif look when the cloth is folded or when it's cut and sewn into a garment? How will it drape across the body when worn? The weaver's body learned the design before the conscious mind even fully grasped it. Muscle memory took over, embedding this deep cultural code into every single motion, every flick of the shuttle, every pull of the thread. It was a dance between mind, body, and material, a seamless flow of intention and action. This physical memory was crucial, because when you're working for hours on end, your hands need to know the way when your mind grows tired. It's a beautiful synergy, a testament to the power of practice and dedication. Of course, mistakes were inevitable, but they weren't seen as failures. Instead, they were opportunities for learning, moments of growth. A misaligned stripe wasn't a disaster. It was a chance to practice the skill of reworking the fabric. A poorly tied knot could be corrected. A dye that came out slightly off color could be adjusted in the next batch. Through this constant cycle of repetition, trial, and correction, the apprentice learned the essential virtues of patience, intense focus, and humility. The loom itself was a demanding teacher, its lessons invisible but indelible, shaping not just the cloth, but the character of the weaver. Each corrected error was a small victory, reinforcing the discipline required to achieve mastery. Let's just pause here for a moment. Can you hear it? The fire crackles softly in the background. Imagine us resting together under a blanket of stars, the vast African sky stretching out above us. Picture those quiet evenings in the village, long after most have gone to sleep. In the stillness of the night, one sound persists, the gentle, rhythmic song of the loom. It's a constant, comforting presence. Each pass of the shuttle carries not just a strand of cotton, but a piece of history, a link in the chain of lineage, a thread binding the community together. Every knot tied is like a heartbeat, pulsing with life. And each completed row of thread is a whispered story, a message from ancestors long, long past, speaking to the present and weaving the future. This wasn't merely a craft. It was a sacred duty, a way of keeping the ancestral spirits alive and present in the community. The master weaver was more than a skilled artisan. They were a historian, a storyteller, a guardian of cultural memory. They knew which patterns were reserved for royalty, which were for wedding ceremonies, and which told the story of a great battle or a bountiful harvest. Passing this knowledge down was a solemn responsibility. The apprentice didn't just learn techniques. They were initiated into a world of symbolism and spiritual significance. The patterns were a visual archive, a library woven from thread, ensuring that the stories of the people would never be lost to time. Each design was a chapter, and the complete textile a grand epic. The materials themselves were treated with immense respect, sourced directly from the earth that sustained the community. Cotton was grown and harvested with care, its fibers spun by hand with a rhythm that had been perfected over centuries. The dyes were a symphony of natural ingredients, crushed minerals for earthy reds and ochres, indigo leaves for deep blues, and tree bark for rich browns. The process of creating these colors was an art form in itself, a kind of alchemy that transformed the raw gifts of nature into vibrant hues. This deep connection to the land was reflected in the final product. The cloth wasn't just an object. It was an embodiment of the environment, a tangible piece of the world from which it came. The physical act of weaving was deeply meditative. The rhythmic clatter of the loom, the smooth passage of the shuttle, the gentle tension of the threads, it all created a trance-like state. In this space of focused creation, the weaver connected with something larger than themselves. It was a form of active meditation, a prayer in motion. The world outside the loom would fade away, leaving only the pattern, the thread, and the hands that brought them together. This state of flow was where the magic happened, where the weaver's spirit infused the cloth, giving it a life and energy of its own. It's why these textiles feel so powerful, so resonant. They hold the focused intention and peaceful energy of their creator. And when a piece was finally completed, it was a moment of celebration for the entire community. It wasn't just one person's achievement. The finished cloth represented the collective effort of farmers who grew the cotton, the artisans who prepared the dyes, and the weaver who brought it all together. These textiles were integral to every aspect of life. They were worn as clothing, used in sacred rituals, given as precious gifts, and even used as currency. A beautifully woven textile was a symbol of wealth, status, and cultural pride. It told the world who you were and where you came from. It was a banner of identity, worn with honor. Now, let's step back into that quiet evening. As the fire dies down to glowing embers, we can feel the weight and texture of this history in our hands. The stories aren't just in books. They are in the clothes we wear, the objects we use. The apprentice, now a master in their own right, sits at the loom, their own apprentice watching beside them. The cycle continues. The silent calculations, the muscle memory, the patient correction of mistakes, it's all part of an unbroken chain stretching back through time. The song of the loom hasn't stopped. It has simply changed voices. The threads of the past are being woven into the fabric of the future, ensuring that the stories, the symbols, and the spirit of the people will endure. This tradition of weaving is a powerful reminder that the most profound things in life are often created slowly, with patience and intention. In our fast-paced world, it's a lesson in the value of slowing down, of honoring the process, and of understanding that every small action, every single thread, contributes to a larger, more beautiful whole. The legacy of these weavers is not just in the stunning textiles they left behind, but in the wisdom embedded within their craft, the importance of community, the connection to nature, and the enduring power of a story well told. Hello and welcome. Let's journey together into the heart of a community to understand a life woven from threads of exhaustion and deep, quiet satisfaction. This is the story of the weaver. There is a moment, always, when the last pass of the shuttle moves beneath the fingers and the pattern uncovers itself fully. It's a small, private triumph. The weaver straightens for the first time in hours, feeling the pull ease from their shoulders. The ache that has lived in the muscles begins to settle like dust. The finished cloth is heavy, not just with thread, but with meaning, with the sweat of many days. It drapes from the frame like a small, slow-weathered story. For that one instant, all the monotony, all the stubbornness of the craft turns into pure brightness. Praise appears a quiet nod from an elder, an approving hum, a small coin exchanged in the market's gentle light. The weaver's chest swells with a soft, contained pride. But that pride is real, and it is also brittle. Months of meticulous work can disappear into a single ceremony. Entire seasons can be folded into a square of fabric that will be wrapped around a bride, placed on an altar, or traded away to a caravan that will carry it across rivers and time. The community's attention focuses for a breath, then returns to the rhythms of daily life: planting, fishing, bargaining, and childcare. And the weaver returns to the loom, because looms do not reward rest. They measure time in rows, and they always demand more. The cycle is unkind in its constancy: create, present, move on. The human body is not built for such endless repetitions without breaks that truly matter. At the center of this life is a tension between visible honor and invisible cost. The weaver's name is rarely carved into stone. Their fame is the cloth itself. A clan will cradle that cloth as precious evidence of its lineage. Yet the person whose hands made it will carry the scars. Calluses curve like rivers across fingertips. A slightly sunk posture comes from countless hours bent over the frame. Tired eyes complain in the evening light. When the sun sets and others step away from their labor to eat slowly, to sing, or to sit by the fire, the weaver sometimes finds no easy place to rest. Their rest is in the making, and then in making again. Let's pause here for a moment. Imagine the fire crackling softly as we rest beneath the stars. Think of the weaver at night, when the hamlet has hushed and the river throws a silver line along the bank. The weaver might be mending a stray thread by lamplight, adjusting the next warp, or listening to elders trade stories that will inform the patterns of the next cloth. Sleep is not always whole. There is the sleep of the body, and then there is the sleeplessness of a mind that continues to measure patterns even in dream. Sometimes exhaustion becomes a ritual hazard. A forgotten knot multiplies into wasted labor. A misjudged dye bath stains a panel the wrong hue. A child's cry interrupts a crucial measurement. These small fractures add up to a real and heavy cost. Lost time, the extra hours needed to rework a piece, and the slow, steady erosion of morale. Nature itself is an unpredictable partner. A single badly timed rain can ruin cloth left to dry on mats. A river flood can carry away bundles of painstakingly dyed fiber. Climate and life do not keep counsel with the weaver. The weaver negotiates with them, and sometimes the weaver loses. There is a social cost as well. In villages where social value is measured through ceremonies and festivals, the weaver's toil supports those events, but often doesn't grant the weaver the same leisure to enjoy them. The same hands that fashion a beautiful marriage cloth might not sit in the front rank at the wedding feast. Prestige often accrues to the patron who commissions the robe, or to the family displaying the textiles, not always to the maker. The weaver's worth is woven into objects that travel, and when they travel, the maker's presence does not always go with them. Yet, the weaver's labor is not merely transactional. It's far more profound than that. Woven into the relationship between maker and community is an obligation, a reciprocity that defies simple accounting. When a cloth is presented to a child at their naming ceremony, it contains prayers. When given to a warrior, it carries a hope of protection. When offered to an elder, it conveys the deepest respect. The weaver gives voice to the village's deepest concerns, all without speaking a single word. This invisible labor is a kind of authority, a slow and steady power that sits beneath the more obvious forms of leadership. But this authority is seldom recognized with titles or land. It is recognized in the hush that falls when elders lift a cloth to the light and read its pattern like scripture. The weaver hears that hush and knows the cloth has spoken well. There are moments when the weaver's weariness welds itself into stubbornness and then into resourcefulness. Faced with failure, ruined dyevat, a snapped water weaver adapts. New motifs are improvised around damaged panels. Old colors are recombined in new and surprising ways. apprentices learn not only the canon of traditional patterns, but also the crucial art of repair. This improvisation is what keeps traditions alive, allowing them to bend rather than snap under pressure. The weave becomes a living archive, one that stores the mistakes alongside the masterful strokes. In this way, the weaver's daily strain becomes a form of resilience for the entire community, not just a personal cost. And so, the weaver's life is a paradox equal measures of exhaustion and deep satisfaction, of obscurity and cultural sovereignty. In the quiet hours before dawn, when the loom sighs and the first birds begin to call, the weaver might reflect on this delicate balance. There is a deep contentment in continuing a line that stretches far beyond a single life. The weaver knows that other hands will follow their own, that lessons spoken only by touch will cross into the next generation. The cloth will travel, and through it, the weaver's hand will travel too. Let's pause here one last time. The fire crackles softly as we rest beneath the stars. When the finished cloth finally leaves the home, it carries the weaver's breath, and that breath becomes part of the village's long, enduring rhythm. The weaver returns to the loom not merely because the work calls, but because the work is how the weaver is remembered, in quiet, exacting threads, in patterns that survive the fiercest storms, and in the slow, stubborn poetry of making. In the kingdom of Kongo, a cloth was never just a cloth. It was a map of memory, a woven whisper carried on the breeze between the world of the ancestors and the world of the living. The weavers who bent over their looms, their hands moving with an almost prayerful rhythm, were doing more than just twisting raffia fibers into something wearable. They were tying together entire philosophies of identity, lineage, and belonging. Imagine the scene. In courtyards shaded by the broad leaves of palm trees, from the first light of dawn until the sky softened into dusk, men and women worked in a quiet harmony with the earth. The process began with the raffia palm itself. They would strip its leaves, a task requiring both strength and care. Then, the fibers were softened, often using ash and oil, before being rolled into fine, strong threads. The only tools for this part of the journey were the weaveress' own palms and the unhurried passage of time. The sound was soft, a steady, gentle murmur of friction and faith, a sound that has echoed through Kongo villages for centuries. Let's pause here for a moment. Picture a fire crackling softly nearby, the stars beginning to appear in the vast African sky. Let that quiet sound of the weaving fill the space. Every single thread was imbued with intention. Before a weaver even began to create the first visible pattern, they would often whisper a prayer. This prayer wasn't for speed, not to complete the work quickly, but to make it true. In their worldview, a perfectly straight line in the weave was a sign of harmony with the ancestors. A crooked line that suggested the weaver's mind had wandered, that their focus was broken. Or, perhaps, it was a subtle sign that the spirits themselves were displeased. This wasn't just craft. It was a constant, tangible dialogue with the unseen world. Across the vast kingdom, the designs on these cloths varied like dialects of a language. If you were in the lands of the Mabata people, you would see tight, controlled, geometric weaves. These patterns mirrored the highly organized structure of their governance, the firmness of their discipline, and their deep respect for order. But if you traveled to the coastal regions, near the great capital of Mbanza, Kongo, the cloths became different. They were lighter, airier. Their diamond motifs seemed to ripple, like waves on the nearby Atlantic. A beautiful testament to how the rhythms of trade and the ocean winds influenced their very culture. To an outsider, these patterns might just look like decoration, something pleasing to the eye. But to the Kongo mind, this was a sophisticated language. A single line could represent a family's lineage, stretching back through generations. A triangle might be a symbol of fertility and the continuation of life. A particular cross-like design wasn't just a shape. It could symbolize the asterisk Disenga asterisk, the sacred crossroads, the meeting point between the realm of the living and the realm of the ancestors. This was the eternal circle of life and death, the cosmic balance of east and west, dawn and dusk, all captured in woven fiber. These raffia cloths were central to the most important moments of life and death. They were worn for significant ceremonies, marking initiations, marriages, and coronations. But their role went far beyond mere adornment. They were gifted as signs of deep respect, traded as items of immense value, and ultimately they accompanied their owners into the next life. When a nobleman died, his body would be wrapped in layers of this hand-woven fiber, the soft glow of the raffia a final comfort. The patterns woven into his shroud were not random. They were believed to act as guides, a map for the spirit's journey home to the ancestral realm. In his life, this same nobleman might have sat upon mats with those very designs during important council meetings, their patterns reinforcing the gravity of the decisions being made. He might have presented these same cloths as a tribute to the king, an offering that spoke of loyalty and wealth. The very act of weaving was a mirror of the Kongo cosmos. It was about creating order from what could be seen as strands of chaos. Each thread had to find its perfect partner, interlocking in a precise sequence. Every movement of the shuttle back and forth across the loom echoed the fundamental dualities of existence. The balance of male and female, of sun and moon, of rain and soil. The loom itself was a microcosm of creation, a small world that had to be kept in perfect, delicate harmony for the final cloth to emerge whole and true. And the women, they were the quiet, steadfast guardians of this sacred art. They knew its secrets intimately. Their songs were rarely sung loudly, because weaving was often done in a state of meditative silence, a focus so deep it was broken only by soft, rhythmic humming. They called the act asterisk kutunga asterisk, which means the act of joining. And in that simple, profound act of joining thread to thread, they were doing something much bigger. They were keeping the nation's identity alive, weaving its soul into tangible form, preserving it through times of war, of drought, and even through the slow, creeping influence of outsiders who did not understand what they were seeing. Let's pause again. Just listen. In the quiet, you can almost hear it, the gentle, rhythmic hum of a loom working under a low, warm sky. For centuries, these beautiful raffia cloths also served as a form of currency. They were a recognized unit of value and exchange across Central Africa. But unlike cold, impersonal coins, they were imbued with meaning and humanity. To hand someone a bundle of cloth was not just a financial transaction. It was to recognize their worth, to acknowledge a bond, to share something of cultural value. Imagine the markets of the time, pulsing with the movement of raffia. You'd see bundles of it carried on heads with impossible grace, strapped to the backs of pack animals or stacked carefully in river canoes, gliding along the waterways, connecting village to village, culture to culture. When Portuguese traders first arrived on the coast in the late 15th century, they marveled at the incredible finesse of the Kongo weavers. They saw the delicate textures, the intricate patterns, and in their minds, these cloths seemed far too fragile, too beautiful for the rigors of daily life in the tropics. They couldn't grasp that these seemingly delicate fibers had a strength that had outlasted kings and kingdoms. They simply did not understand. The Congo people, however, saw what the foreigners could not. They knew that every single weave was a record, a living history. Every pattern was a scripture, a piece of ancestral wisdom made visible. Their art survived and continues to survive, precisely because it was slow. It was deliberate. It was human. No machine could ever imitate the touch of a hand that had learned its patience, its rhythm, and its purpose from the ancestors themselves. The fire crackles again, sending a few sparks up into the night, and we move forward in our story, carried on the timeless, woven whisper of the loom. Have you ever considered that a piece of clothing could be more than just something you wear? What if it was your ID, your resume, and your spiritual compass, all woven into one? In the heart of Central Africa, the Congo people created something extraordinary. Raffia cloths that did exactly that. These weren't just fabrics. They were social passports, each thread telling a story of who you were, where you came from, and where you stood in the world. Imagine walking into a village. Before anyone says a word, they know you. The pattern on your attire reveals your rank, your tribe, even your stage in life. For the highborn, the designs were a breathtaking display of complexity. Intricate, interlocking diamonds, mesmerizing zigzags, and sophisticated checkerboards declared their status. Sometimes they were even embroidered with extra raffia knots, adding a three-dimensional texture that spoke of depth and immense wealth. These weren't just patterns. They were a visual language of power. But what about the common folk? Their weaves were simpler, yet no less meaningful. A farmer's cloth might carry motifs of maize, a prayer for a bountiful harvest. Another might feature symbols of rainfall, a lifeline in the dry seasons. You might even see the footprints of sacred animals woven into the fabric, connecting the wearer to the spiritual world that pulsed around them. Every single piece, from the most elaborate to the most humble, was saturated with meaning. It was a world where your clothes truly spoke for you. Now, let's journey to the royal court of Mbanza, Congo, the capital of this great kingdom. Here, the presentation of textiles was a sacred ritual. When envoys from other lands or provinces arrived, they didn't begin with speeches or grand pronouncements. Their first act was to present raffia cloths. These weren't just gifts. They were a statement of respect and a map of hierarchy. Picture this: the envoys approach the throne. Their arms laden with folded fabrics, they begin to lay them down, one by one, in a specific ceremonial order. The coarser, simpler weaves are placed at the bottom of the stack. Then, layer upon layer, the cloths become finer, the patterns more complex, the colors richer. This careful stacking represented a symbolic journey, an ascent from the earthly, common realm to the divine, royal presence. The finest cloth placed on top was a direct tribute to the king's sacred authority. To witness this was to understand the very structure of Congo society, all communicated through the silent language of textiles. Let's just pause here for a moment. Imagine the scene: the great hall, the flicker of firelight dancing on the walls, and somewhere in the distance, the low, resonant echo of a drum beating through the night, a rhythm as old as the kingdom itself. The texture and color of the cloth were also tied to the rhythm of the seasons. During the rainy season, when the land was fertile and life was renewed, the cloths were heavier, denser. They were dyed in deep earth tones, rich browns, dark ochres, symbolizing the life-giving soil. It was a way of wearing the very essence of fertility. But when the long dry season arrived, the textiles transformed. The weaves became lighter, more breathable, and they shimmered in shades of light gold and pale straw. These colors weren't just practical. They reflected the endurance of the sun, its unwavering power. It was a tribute to resilience in the face of hardship. Life's most important moments were also marked by specific textiles. A birth would be celebrated with a cloth of a particular pattern, a silent blessing for the new life. A wedding would involve the exchange of special weaves, binding two families together not just by vows, but by shared threads. And for funerals, specific cloths were used to wrap the deceased, guiding their soul on its journey. Every significant event, from cradle to grave, had its own unique textile vocabulary, a woven record of a life lived. In Kongo culture, to give cloth was to speak without words. It was a profound act of communication. When a mother passed down weaving techniques to her daughter, she wasn't just teaching a craft. She was imparting a code of ethics. The process of weaving was a lesson in itself. It taught patience, the discipline to follow a pattern, and the importance of symmetry and balance. The loom wasn't just a tool. It became a mirror of one's spirit. A messy, uneven weave reflected a scattered mind, while a tight, perfect cloth was the mark of a disciplined and balanced soul. The very act of creating the fabric was a test of character. Beyond the cloths of daily life and courtly ritual, there existed another, more mysterious category: the sacred cloths. These were not for display. They were kept hidden in shrines, away from casual eyes, guarded by priests and spiritual leaders. These textiles were conduits to the unseen world. Some had powerful charms woven directly into the fibers, tiny, potent beads, slivers of animal bone, or specially dyed threads carrying silent prayers and invocations. Imagine a priest in a dimly lit shrine. Candles burn low, casting long shadows. He carefully unfolds one of these sacred cloths, his fingers tracing the ancient patterns with reverence. He isn't just touching fabric, he is communing with the spirits. These cloths were used in powerful rites of healing, to protect a village from harm, or to seek guidance from the ancestors. To touch one was to connect with a power far beyond the physical world. A testament to the deep spiritual beliefs woven into the very fabric of Kongo life. The creation of these colors was an art form in itself, a kind of alchemy passed down through generations of women. They were masters of the natural world, knowing which bark, which root, which type of soil would yield the perfect shade. They extracted rich ochres from the earth, deep blacks from charcoal for rain clouds, and a vibrant, sacred red from specific trees, symbolizing the ancestral fire that connected them all. A master weaver possessed an incredible skill. She could look at a cloth and, just by the specific shade of its dye, identify the village it came from. The colors told stories of geography. Coastal regions, with their unique flora, produced distinct, vibrant reds. Inland areas were known for their deep, earthy browns. And cloths from the dense forest regions carried shades of green, echoing the canopy above. Even distance had a hue. The cloth was a map, a story of place written in color. Then, everything began to change. In the late 15th century, Portuguese ships arrived on the coast, bringing with them a flood of new goods. Among them were their own textiles: wool, linen, and fine cotton. For some Kongo nobles, these foreign fabrics were a novelty, a new way to display wealth and a connection to this powerful outside world. They began to adopt European styles, and imported cloth started to appear in the royal court. Yet, even as these new materials flowed into the kingdom, raffia endured. It held a power, an ancestral authority that imported textiles could never replicate. You could wear Portuguese cloth to a market or a meeting, displaying your worldly connections. But there were sacred boundaries it could not cross. You could not be buried in it. Why? Because the Kongo people believed that only raffia, a material born of their own land, and woven by their own hands, could safely guide a soul back to the realm of the ancestors. It was the thread connecting the living to the dead, a bond that foreign cloth could never forge. Let's pause again for a moment. Close your eyes and listen. Can you hear the chirp of the night insects, the gentle hum of the evening, and underneath it all, the steady, rhythmic sound of a shuttle passing back and forth on a loom, a heartbeat in the dark, weaving the story of a people? This brings us to a profound truth at the heart of Kongo culture. To them, weaving wasn't just a skill or an art. It was a moral act. It was a physical manifestation of integrity. You couldn't rush the process. You couldn't cheat by taking shortcuts. You couldn't fake the quality of a well-made cloth. The material itself would betray any lack of discipline or patience. Like truth, a good piece of raffia cloth demanded time, focus, and honesty. That is why, even as kingdoms rose and fell, as political landscapes shifted, and as foreign rulers came and went, the loom remained. It was a constant, an unbroken heartbeat in a world of change. It was more than a tool for making fabric. It was a pillar of their identity, a quiet testament to the resilience, discipline, and enduring spirit of the Kongo people. The threads they wove were not just material, they were the very threads of their culture, holding it together across the centuries. Even today, if you travel to the small towns near Matadi or across northern Angola, you might see a sight that feels like it's been lifted straight from the past. Old women sit in front of simple looms, fashioned from nothing more than sticks and rope. As they work, they hum old, familiar melodies, their fingers gliding over the golden raffia threads. It's a rhythm that once echoed in the grand courts of kings, a sound that has carried stories for centuries. But things are different now. The weaving is slower, more personal. It's not for a king's tribute or for a vast, bustling market. The markets have changed. The world outside moves at a dizzying speed. Yet, something profound remains. There's a persistent, quiet sense that each cloth they create is a message. Each intricate design, a fingerprint of a people who simply refused to vanish, a testament to their enduring spirit. As the sun casts a golden light into a small earthen courtyard, you might see an elderly Kongo woman, her hands weathered by time and experience, guiding the smaller hands of a young girl. She's not just teaching her how to weave. She's passing down a legacy, a language that is felt rather than spoken. This is how the story continues. Modern historians are only now beginning to fully grasp what the ancestors always knew. These textiles were never just economic goods. They were far more than that. They were archives, living libraries woven from palm fiber. Their geometric codes, which might look like simple decoration to an untrained eye, actually preserved entire philosophies. They hold complex ideas about balance, about the duality of existence, and about the endless cycle of regeneration. These patterns expressed the very same cosmology that you can find in the intricate Kongo wood carvings, their masterful metalwork, and even in the sacred layout of their towns. Everything was connected, and the textiles were a key part of this unified worldview. It was a way of writing their beliefs into the very fabric of their daily lives. Take, for instance, the diamond patterns so common in raffia mats. They might seem like a simple, pleasing design, but they are a representation of the Dikenga dia Kongo, the cosmic cross. This powerful symbol connects the 4 moments of the sun's journeyed on: noon, sunset, and midnight, to the 4 dimensions of human life: birth, maturity, death, and rebirth in the ancestral realm. It's a complete map of the universe and one's place within it, woven into an object you might use every day. So, even when written literacy arrived with outsiders, the weaver's cloth remained the truest, most authentic script of the Congo soul. Let's pause here for a moment. Imagine us sitting together, the fire humming low, casting dancing shadows. The stars are beginning to glint brightly over the wide, dark river, and the air is filled with the quiet hum of the night. This is the kind of stillness where you can almost hear the past whispering. Today, when scholars and curators study these ancient designs in the climate-controlled rooms of museums, they're finally seeing what the old weavers whispered into the threads all along, that no empire, no kingdom, truly ends if its art survives. Each piece of preserved raffia cloth is a time capsule. It's a direct link to the hands that made it, the community that valued it, and the beliefs that inspired it. Picture this: a curator in a Kinshasa museum, wearing white gloves, gently unfolds an ancient raffia cloth under a soft gallery light. As the fabric is revealed, its patterns seem to come alive. When the light falls on its surface, you can almost see the ghosts of the hands that knotted each thread, feel the patience and intention that went into its creation. It's more than just an artifact, it's a presence. And this story is far from over. Today, new generations of Congo artists are taking this ancient language and giving it a modern voice. They are reinterpreting these powerful patterns in paint, in high fashion, and in monumental sculpture. Fashion designers are weaving the symbolic raffia motifs into contemporary gowns, worn on catwalks a world away from the villages where they originated. Muralists are reimagining the asterisk Dikanga, asterisk cosmogram, painting it across city walls, turning urban spaces into sacred ones. Even digital artists are getting involved, replicating the intricate weaves of raffia in glowing pixels on a screen. It's a modern loom, humming with the soft glow of electric light, but the spirit behind it is unchanged. The act of creating these patterns, whether with fiber or with code, still speaks to the same core values: order from chaos, the virtue of patience, and the profound importance of honoring your ancestry. It's a way of saying, we are still here. We remember. Let's pause one last time. The fire crackles softly now, as if it's remembering its own ancient origins, the first spark that brought warmth and light. Listen closely. Imagine a sunset over a Congo village. The sky is a blaze of orange and purple. You can see rolls of freshly woven raffia cloth glinting in the warm, fading light. In the distance, the sound of children's laughter blends with the faint, rhythmic pulse of distant drums. It's a scene of peace, of continuity, of life moving forward, rooted in a deep and resilient past. The patterns of the Congo remain. They are not frozen in time, locked away in a museum case. They are alive. They are constantly moving from the palm of a tree to the fiber, from the fiber to the thread, from the thread into a story. And in the quiet moments, if you listen carefully, you can still hear the looms, continuing their timeless, sacred song. Before the first European sails broke the line of the horizon, the Congo Kingdom was already a vibrant, humming web of trade. This wasn't a network spun by kings and their decrees alone. No, it was woven by the hands of countless individuals, weavers and paddlers. Women who presided over markets, elders who judged quality, fishers casting nets in the misty mornings, and gatherers who knew the secrets of the forest. Their most prized creations, their textiles, were rolled into great bundles, like scrolls of captured sunlight, and sent moving across the vast network of rivers that braided their land together, connecting community to community, heart to heart. Imagine the scene. In the quiet cool of the morning, as mist rises like a ghost from the surface of the mighty Congo River, canoes slip silently through the water. They are low in the water, laden with precious cargo, bolts of exquisite raffia cloth. Each bundle is a story in itself, marked by distinct colors and intricate patterns that declare its village of origin. These textiles began their journey deep inland, in quiet, weaving villages where the only sounds were the rhythmic clatter of looms and the rustle of palm leaves. From there, they traveled downstream to the bustling royal capital at Mbanza, Kongo. But their journey didn't end there. They continued onward, ever onward, toward the coast, where the humid air carried the smell of salt and the promise of new connections. The weavers themselves, the artists who brought these cloths into being, rarely made these long journeys. Their world was one of patient, focused creation, the quiet rhythm of the loom, not the boisterous haggling of distant markets. Yet they worked with a profound understanding. They knew that somewhere far downstream the fruit of their labor, this cloth, imbued with their skill and spirit, would meet salt from the coastal pans, gleaming ivory from the deep forests, rich copper from the southern mines, and lustrous cowrie shells from across the ocean. In that exchange, in that meeting of worlds, they would secure food for their families, uphold the honor of their villages, and strengthen the very fabric of their kingdom. Let's just pause here for a moment. Listen, can you hear it? The fire hums, and beyond our small circle of light, the river's breath echoes through the night. It's a sound that has carried stories for millennia. The raffia cloths of the Congo were far more than simple commodities. They were a sophisticated form of currency, yes, but they were also powerful symbols. These textiles were used to pay taxes to the king, to purchase livestock, to seal the sacred bond of marriage, and to wrap the deceased for their final journey, honoring them in death as they were honored in life. The very language of the Congo people reflected this deep connection. There were specific words for cloth that also meant life, and others that meant oath. This tells us something vital. Every exchange, every transaction carried a spiritual weight. To cheat someone in a trade involving cloth was not just a crime against a person. It was an act that could anger the ancestors, disrupting the spiritual balance of the community. At the zenith of the Congo Empire, this raffia currency was meticulously standardized. It wasn't a free. Lengths were measured against established standards. Patterns and quality were verified by respected market elders, and only cloths of a specific, recognized texture were accepted for royal trade and taxes. This system was a brilliant fusion of economics and morality. The value of a cloth didn't come from artificial scarcity, but from the honesty of the work invested in it, the skill of the weaver, the quality of the fibers, the integrity of the dye. It was a system built on trust and a shared understanding of what constituted true worth. Think of the vastness of this network. As caravans of porters carried these bundles of raffia cloth northward toward the neighboring kingdom of and westward toward the coastal states of Longo, the textiles transformed into a kind of diplomatic language. When two chiefs or regional leaders exchanged gifts of fine cloth, they weren't just trading goods. They were reaffirming alliances, renewing pacts of peace, and strengthening ties of kinship. The Congo weavers, in their quiet villages, thus became invisible diplomats. Their silent, patient labor was woven directly into every treaty, every royal marriage, and every celebratory feast that held the kingdom together. Their hands shaped the very politics of the region. So it's no surprise that when Portuguese traders first arrived on the Congo coast in the late 15th century, they were utterly astonished. They had sailed across the world, confident in their own economic systems, only to find a society where woven palm fibers served as the foundation of an entire, complex economy. This country cloth, as they dismissively called it at first, quickly earned their respect. It rivaled their own textiles in value and, in many local contexts, far exceeded European cloth in prestige and significance. You couldn't buy certain things or certain loyalties with foreign fabric. You needed Kongo cloth. Let's pause again. In the distance, a drum thunders, its deep voice rolling across the dark waters. It's a reminder that this land has its own pulse, its own ancient rhythm. The Kongo people held a worldview where trade wasn't about conquest or extraction. It was about reciprocity, a delicate balancing of flows, like the ebb and flood of the river itself. The philosophy was simple and profound. What left the village would one day return, perhaps transformed by its journey, but still spiritually connected to its maker and its origin. And so, the raffia bundles travelled, their journeys expanding ever outward, from the inland villages to the great river, from the river to the coastal ports, from the ports onto the decks of European ships, and from those ships to entirely different continents, carrying the spirit of the Kongo with them. It's a testament to their incredible quality and cultural power that even today, some fragments of this ancient Kongo cloth survive. You can find them in museum collections across Europe, faded by time, frayed at the edges, but still unmistakably alive. When you look at them, when you see the intricate geometry of the patterns and the fine, even weave of the threads, you can almost feel the history held within them. You can almost hear the quiet hum of the weaver's loom, the chatter of the marketplace, and the eternal, murmuring voice of the Kongo River. Hello again, and welcome back. If you're just joining us, we've been exploring the intricate world of Kongo textiles, not just as objects, but as living threads of culture. Now, let's venture deeper into the bustling markets and along the ancient trade routes where these remarkable cloths traveled. Trade in Kongo was never just about material gain. It was a complex dance of custom, ritual, and trust, held together by people who knew how to navigate both the physical and the spiritual worlds. And many of these essential figures were women. Picture the scene in the lively hum of a market town. Amidst the scents of dried fish and ripe fruit, it was women who set the prices for raffia cloth. They were the authenticators, their sharp eyes verifying the intricate patterns, their memories holding the genealogies of the weaving families. Every family's cloth told a story, a lineage woven into its very fibers. And only those who knew these stories, who could recite them by heart, could mediate a fair exchange. Their authority wasn't granted by a king's decree or a written law. It was earned and recognized through memory, expertise, and a deep understanding of the community. They were the living libraries of the textile world, ensuring that every transaction was not just a sale, but a respectful continuation of tradition. Let's pause here for a moment. Imagine the day is ending. The sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows. The night breeze begins to stir the palm fronds, and somewhere in the gentle glow of a fire, a market woman carefully counts her bundles of cloth, her hands moving with a practiced grace that has been passed down through generations. These trade routes were the arteries of the kingdom, stretching far and wide. They followed the winding paths of rivers, cut through dense, humid forests, and crossed vast, sun-drenched savannas. Kongo textiles journeyed to neighboring peoples like the Tio, the Luba, and far beyond the kingdom's borders. These cloths became coveted luxury items. Chiefs of inland territories would adorn their wives in imported Kongo weaves, a clear and elegant statement of their wealth and influence. A beautifully patterned raffia skirt was more than clothing. It was a symbol of status, a testament to powerful alliances and successful trade. But, unlike the fast-paced, often impersonal commerce we know today, these transactions were never, ever rushed. The process of barter was a social event. It involved long, unhurried discussions, the sharing of meals, the telling of stories, and the sound of songs and laughter. In Kongo culture, to trade without patience was seen as immature, even foolish. A true trader, like a master weaver, cultivated a sense of calm. This deliberate pace wasn't about inefficiency. It was about building relationships, fostering trust, and showing respect for the craft and the person you were trading with. The calm that defined the weaver's art was the same calm that defined the art of exchange. Ritual, too, was woven into the very fabric of commerce. Before embarking on a long and potentially dangerous journey, traders would consult diviners. They would make offerings of cowrie shells and palm wine to the spirits to ensure safe passage and prosperous dealings. A bad omen, a strange bird call, an unsettling dream could be enough to delay an entire caravan for weeks. The underlying belief was simple and profound. Wealth gained through haste, or by ignoring the spiritual world, was unstable and fleeting. True prosperity was built on a foundation of respect for the unseen forces that governed life. When textiles from foreign lands, particularly from Europe, began to appear in Kongo markets, there was a ripple of concern. Some feared that these mass-produced goods would disrupt the sacred balance, that the traditions of the loom would be lost. But the raffia weavers of Kongo did not respond with protest or rebellion. Instead, they responded with an incredible display of resilience and creativity. They adapted, they refined their weaving techniques, making their cloths even softer and more intricate. They invented new, dazzling patterns that blended tradition with innovation. They added decorative elements like fringe embroidery, creating textiles that captivated even the discerning eyes of Portuguese merchants. This was a testament to their artistic genius and their deep confidence in their own culture. Let's pause again, just for a breath. The fire size, casting a warm glow. The storyteller, a guardian of these histories, takes a slow, thoughtful sip of palm wine, letting the silence hold the weight of the past. This remarkable adaptation was not an act of surrender. It was an act of survival. It was a powerful declaration. The Kongo weavers understood a fundamental truth. Cloth was identity, and identity, true identity, could not be imported or replaced. Though foreign trade brought new and useful goods, iron for tools and weapons, salt for preserving food, even muskets for hunting and defense, raffia cloth remained the true heartbeat of the economy and the culture. It was the standard of value, the medium of social connection, the very soul of exchange. And through these bustling trade routes, it wasn't just goods that traveled. Knowledge itself was a precious commodity, passed from person to person, village to village. Songs and myths journeyed with the caravans. Carving techniques were shared between artisans, and moral codes were discussed around campfires. The humble weaver's loom became a quiet, powerful engine of cultural expansion, spreading beauty, ideas, and a shared sense of identity much farther and more effectively than any army ever could. The threads of the raffia cloth connected people not just in commerce, but in community. Finally, think of the traders themselves, far from home. By night, when the markets were quiet and the caravans stopped to rest beneath a vast blanket of stars, they would unroll their cloths. These textiles were not just merchandise, they were a piece of home. They used them as blankets, sleeping under the protective embrace of symbols that reminded them of their families, their ancestors, and their land. The patterns that gave them value in the market also gave them comfort in the darkness. Even in rest, in the quiet vulnerability of sleep, the weave protected them. The story of Kongo cloth is a story of resilience, of beauty, and of a deep understanding that the most valuable things in life are those that connect us to each other and to our heritage. Did you know that long before European explorers set foot in the heart of Africa, African art was already captivating European high society? By the late 17th century, a very special kind of textile from the Kingdom of Kongo was making waves across the continent. These weren't just pieces of fabric. They were masterpieces of intricate geometry woven from the fibers of the raffia palm. European collectors, absolutely mesmerized, called them velvets of the savannah. Imagine these cloths, with their complex patterns and soft yet firm texture, displayed not just in private collections, but in grand cathedrals and even at the heart of royal courts. They were admired, treasured, but fundamentally misunderstood. What the Europeans saw as exotic decoration, a beautiful but silent pattern, the Congo people saw as theology woven into fiber. Each line, each cross, each diamond shape was a symbol, a piece of a larger cosmic story. These weren't just textiles, they were sacred texts, maps of the universe, and philosophical treatises all rolled into one. The patterns told stories of creation, of the relationship between the living and the ancestors, of the very structure of their world. It's a profound thought, isn't it? An entire belief system, tangible and beautiful, held within the warp and weft of a piece of cloth. Let's pause here for a moment. Take a deep breath with me. If you can, find a quiet space. Listen to the silence around you. Imagine you're on a coastline, maybe near the mouth of the Congo River. Hear the quiet, rhythmic breathing of the sea just beyond the dunes. Feel the sand, still warm from the day's sun. This is the land where these cloths were born, a place of deep connection between nature, spirit, and human creativity. In this quiet, you can almost hear the rustle of raffia palms in the breeze, the soft hum of weavers at their looms. This connection to the land, to the rhythm of the natural world, is woven into every single thread. As the great sailing ships of the era crossed the vast, daunting Atlantic, their holds were filled with the riches of Africa. Ivory tusks, gleaming and heavy, copper ingots, shining with a warm, earthy glow, and of course, bales of these incredible Congo textiles, folded carefully for the long journey. But the most significant cargo, the most powerful export, was completely unseen. It was the worldview of the weavers themselves, a philosophy carried across the ocean in the silent language of their craft. This worldview was built on profound principles. It taught that patience was a form of power. Think about the process: harvesting the raffia, splitting the fibers into fine threads, dyeing them with natural pigments, and then, over countless hours, weaving these intricate patterns. Each step required immense focus and a deep, meditative patience. This wasn't just a chore. It was a spiritual practice, and the result, beauty, but not just surface-level beauty. For the Congo, beauty was a form of truth. A perfectly executed pattern wasn't just pleasing to the eye. It was a reflection of the divine order of the cosmos. A beautiful object was a truthful object. This unseen cargo, this philosophy of patience and beauty survived the brutal journey of the Middle Passage. Centuries later, in the vibrant, syncretic cultures of the African diaspora in Cuba, Haiti, and Brazil, you can still find the echoes, the remnants of this Congo aesthetic. It survived against all odds. You see it in the stunning geometric embroidery on ritual garments used in Santeria or Candomblé ceremonies. You feel it in the raffia-like textures of costumes worn during vibrant festivals like Carnival, a rustling memory of the ancestral homeland. And most powerfully, you see it in the sacred symbols. The cross patterns, so central to Kongo cosmology, representing the crossroads between the world of the living and the world of the spirits, reappear on sacred altars in the Americas. These patterns are not mere decoration. They are potent spiritual diagrams, a direct link back to the motherland. The diaspora, the descendants of those who were forcibly taken, remembered the cloth. They remembered its power and its meaning, even when the original words, the specific names for the patterns and techniques, were lost to the trauma of history. The memory was held in their hands, in their art, in their spirit. When we think of trade, especially in a historical context, we often imagine a straight line. Goods go from point A to point B. Money or other goods come back. It's a linear, transactional process. But that's not how the Kongo people understood it. For them, trade was never linear. It was circular, just like their understanding of the cosmos, of life, death, and rebirth. Everything moved in a cycle. In Kongo thought, the world is a circle. Souls are born. They live, they pass into the spirit world, and they can return. The sun rises, crosses the sky, sets, and travels through the underworld to rise again. Everything is in constant motion, a perpetual cycle of transformation. Trade was a reflection of this cosmic dance. Goods didn't just disappear when they were traded away. They went out into the world, were transformed by their journey and their new context, and their influence, their essence, would eventually return, changed but recognizable, just as souls did. A piece of cloth sent to Europe might be admired as an exotic object, but its influence could ripple outwards, inspiring a new pattern in a different medium, its story being told and retold, eventually circling back in an unexpected form. This idea of a circular, transformative exchange is so much richer than a simple transaction. It imbues every act of trade with a sense of reverence and cosmic significance. It wasn't just about profit. It was about participating in the great, cyclical rhythm of the universe itself. And this incredible global web, which began with humble weavers in quiet forest villages, working with the materials the land gave them, continues to spin and evolve today. The journey of these textiles is far from over. Museums around the world are now re-examining their collections, not just as ethnographic artifacts, but as sophisticated works of art and philosophy. Fashion designers, searching for authentic and meaningful inspiration, are rediscovering the power of these ancient patterns, their rhythm and their story. Historians are piecing together the threads of a global history that was overlooked for far too long. What they are finding in these ancient fabrics is not simple nostalgia, not a wistful look back at a lost world. They are finding resilience, the incredible, enduring strength of a culture that encoded its deepest truths into its art, allowing those truths to survive unimaginable hardship and travel across oceans and centuries. The story of Kongo cloth is a story of cultural survival against all odds. For every single strand of raffia that is still preserved in a museum vault or a private collection, a voice still hums somewhere in the dark. It's the hum of the weaver at the loom, the hum of the elder telling stories, the hum of ancestors watching over their descendants. It's a quiet but persistent sound, and it carries a powerful message. It reminds us that trade, when it is done with respect, with reverence for the maker and the object, with an understanding of its deeper meaning, becomes more than just commerce. It becomes art. It becomes a connection. It becomes a prayer. Let's pause one last time together. Imagine we've been sitting around a fire, sharing this long story. The flames are beginning to dim now, casting long, dancing shadows. The night has grown deeper, cooler. The story of Kongo textiles isn't just about the hands that wove them. It's equally about those who commanded their creation, the nobles, kings, and priestly elites whose very prestige depended on the cloth's brilliance. Think of it less as a simple craft and more as a state-sponsored art form, where the loom was as mighty as the sword. In the bustling royal capital of Mbanza, Kongo, workshops hummed with activity. Operating directly under noble supervision, this wasn't some cottage industry hidden away in distant villages. This was the heart of the empire's creative power. The most skilled weavers in the kingdom were summoned by royal decree, brought to the capital not as servants, but as honored guests. Their families were granted special privileges and protection, a clear sign of their immense value to the state. These artisans were respected custodians of beauty, their hands shaping the very fabric of power. Imagine the scene: a Kongo king, adorned in his finest regalia, inspecting newly woven cloth in the royal courtyard. Attendants kneel respectfully beside meticulously folded bundles of raffia, each one a testament to weeks, even months, of painstaking labor. The air is thick with anticipation as the king assesses the quality, the pattern, the sheer artistry of the work. This wasn't just about aesthetics. It was a review of the kingdom's cultural health and wealth. Every significant royal ceremony demanded new cloths. Coronations, royal marriages, intricate rituals to summon the Rainsitch event was marked by the presentation and display of magnificent textiles. This created a constant, insatiable demand. Nobles, in a fascinating display of social maneuvering, competed in generosity. They would gift the king and each other with vast quantities of raffia cloth and mats. This wasn't just a friendly exchange. It was a public declaration of loyalty, a measurement of a noble family's strength and influence. The more cloth you could commission and give away, the greater your standing in the court's complex hierarchy. It was a currency of power, as tangible as gold or ivory. Think of it as a potlatch of textiles, where giving was a demonstration of immense wealth and political allegiance. A noble who could afford to sponsor dozens of weavers was a noble to be reckoned with. This system ensured that the finest artistic talents were always employed, always pushing the boundaries of their craft. Driven by the engine of elite competition, the entire social and political structure was interwoven with these threads of raffia. But let's pause here for a moment. Let the drums of prestige fade and listen to the whisper of night in the ancient capital. Beneath the public spectacle and the political maneuvering, there was a deeper philosophy at play. A noble's true worth wasn't measured simply by how much cloth he could own. It was measured by his ability to sponsor its creation. The act of patronage was more important than the act of possession. It was a moral duty to ensure that the looms never fell silent, that the knowledge passed down through generations was not only preserved but nurtured. To sustain art was to sustain the soul of the Kongo kingdom. This wasn't about hoarding wealth. It was about circulating it through the creative arteries of the society. A noble who failed to support the arts was seen as failing in his duty to the community and the ancestors. This patronage created a stable, thriving environment where artists could flourish without the constant worry of survival. They were free to innovate, to experiment, and to create masterpieces that would echo through history. This deep-seated respect for the creator, not just the creation, is a profound lesson in how a society can value its culture. Now, the king's cloth was something else entirely. It was set apart, wrapped in layers of protocol and taboo. While nobles could commission magnificent textiles, the king's cloth was different. Its patterns were rare, and their use was severely restricted. Only certain weavers, initiated into specific mystical knowledge, were permitted to create them. To even attempt to replicate a royal pattern was an act of treason. The colors, too, were symbolic and reserved for the monarch. Ochre, a deep reddish-brown, represented divine fire. The king's connection to the supernatural forces that governed the world. White, derived from kaolin clay, symbolized the clarity of the ancestral spirits, from whom the king drew his wisdom and legitimacy. To misuse these sacred hues, for a commoner or even a high-ranking noble to wear them without permission, was to invite calamity. It was believed to disrupt the cosmic balance, potentially causing drought, disease, or defeat in battle. The king's body was a living symbol of the state's health, and the cloth he wore was its protective, sacred skin. Imagine a royal weaver, their face a mask of concentration, carefully dyeing strands of raffia in vats of red and white pigment. An elder, a keeper of the old ways, watches over the process, ensuring every step is performed according to ancient ritual. This wasn't just dyeing. It was an act of consecration, imbuing the threads with spiritual power before they were ever touched by a loom. The most elite patrons, the king and the highest echelons of the priesthood, commissioned these extraordinary raffia cloths, not for vanity, but for legacy. These weren't fashion statements meant to be discarded after a season. They were historical documents, woven chronicles of the kingdom. The most important cloths were recorded in the kingdom's oral histories. The names of the Nganga Yakasala, the master weavers, were recited, alongside the names of kings, queens, and great warriors. Their artistry was not seen as a lesser contribution. It was an integral part of the empire's glory. A king's reign was remembered not only for his conquests, but for the splendor of the textiles created under his patronage. The weaver and the warrior, the artist and the king, their combined genius was the pride of the empire. These cloths were literally the fabric of their history, each pattern a chapter, each color a verse in the epic poem of the Kongo people. They were woven to last, to be passed down through generations as tangible links to the greatness of the past. They were, in the truest sense, immortal. In the highest echelons of the Kongo kingdom, the language of power wasn't always spoken. Often, it was woven. Imagine the scene. A foreign emissary, perhaps from Portugal, arriving at the royal court. They are not greeted with gold or jewels, but with something far more precious. Textiles. They are welcomed with cloths so exquisitely fine they seem to shimmer like river water in the midday sun. These aren't just fabrics. They are declarations of wealth, status, and artistic mastery. The Portuguese governors, men accustomed to the silks and velvets of Europe, were utterly astonished. They wrote letters home, struggling to describe what they saw. One described these Kongo cloths as being as delicate as lace, though made without thread. This wasn't an exaggeration. It was a testament to the sheer skill of the Kongo weavers. They could manipulate raffia palm fibers into patterns so intricate, so ethereal, that they defied European understanding of textiles. This was a craft that bordered on magic. Let's pause here for a moment. Imagine the scene at court. The air thick with anticipation. The wind gently brushes the ceremonial fires, making them whisper and dance. The storyteller's voice lowers, drawing everyone closer. A Portuguese emissary dressed in his heavy European finery stands before the king. He is presented with a bolt of this shimmering raffia cloth. In the background, court musicians play solemn, beautiful melodies on magnificent ivory trumpets. The cloth isn't just a gift, it's a message. It says, "You are in a land of immense sophistication. Recognize our power, not in the gleam of metal, but in the elegance of our craft." This was diplomacy woven from palm fibers. For the Kongo elite, clothing was a form of sacred armor. To wear raffia was to wrap oneself in history, to carry the stories of the ancestors on one's shoulders. Each pattern, each color, held a meaning that stretched back through generations. It was a tangible link to the past, a visible manifestation of one's lineage and rightful place in the social order. Abandoning this tradition, choosing foreign fabrics over the ancestral cloth, was seen as more than a fashion faux pas. It was a betrayal of ancestry, a severing of the sacred bond with those who came before. This commitment held firm even as new, exotic materials began to arrive. When Portuguese ships brought chests filled with lustrous silks and rich brocades from Europe and Asia, the Kongo court was intrigued but not seduced. While these imported fabrics might be used for everyday wear, for the most important ceremonial occasions, the kings and nobles continued to favor raffia. This choice was a powerful statement. It demonstrated that true power did not come from imitating others, but from maintaining one's own traditions. Power was continuity. Wearing raffia was a declaration that the Kongo identity was strong, self-sufficient, and deeply rooted in its own cultural soil. The weavers who created these masterpieces were held in high esteem, often enjoying the patronage of the nobility. They were artists, celebrated for their skill and creativity. But with this high status came immense pressure. Their work was not merely decorative, it was politically and spiritually charged. A single misaligned pattern in a royal garment could be interpreted as a bad omen, potentially delaying a king's enthronement. A dye that was slightly too dark could accidentally signify mourning instead of the intended message of victory, causing widespread confusion and anxiety. The fate of state events, and indeed the perceived stability of the kingdom, could rest on the steady hands and clear vision of a weaver. The weight of this responsibility was immense. Some weavers, overwhelmed by the sacred duty entrusted to them, adopted an ascetic lifestyle. They would retreat from society, working in complete silence for months on end, dedicating their entire being to the loom. They would emerge from their seclusion, pale and humbled, having poured their very essence into the cloth. It was a sacrifice, a form of spiritual devotion through craft. Yet their reward was a form of immortality. When court historians, the guardians of memory, sang the epic praises of great kings and queens, their chronicles were not limited to battles won or decrees made. They would often include lines dedicated to the textiles of the rain. They sang of the cloth of rain, a fabric so fine it seemed to capture a storm's mist, or the pattern of dawn, a design that mirrored the first rays of sun. They would praise the weaver who, through their skill and dedication, dreamed color into being. In this way, the weavers were immortalized alongside the rulers they served. Their art became an inseparable part of the kingdom's history. Their names and their creations woven into the very fabric of Kongo's legacy. Let's pause again. The sparks from the fire rise like fleeting stars into the night sky. The firelight flickers and dances, casting moving shadows across the room. It illuminates old, precious cloths draped over intricately carved wooden stools, their patterns seeming to come alive in the warm glow. Imagine an elder court historian, his voice a low, resonant chant. He stands before the assembled nobles, his finger pointing to the magnificent embroidered raffia banners that hang along the palace walls. Each banner tells a story, a chronicle of a dynasty, a map of the spiritual world. His chant is not just a recitation of history, it is an act of bringing the past into the present, making the ancestors witnesses to the current gathering. The banners are not just decorations, they are sacred texts, historical documents woven with thread and meaning. Through this system of noble patronage, raffia weaving achieved a monumental scale. This wasn't just about producing large quantities of cloth, it was about the scale of vision. The patterns became more complex, the symbolism more profound. The king's personal cloths, in particular, became emblems of divine order. Their designs were not random or purely aesthetic. They were carefully constructed to echo the Kongo cosmogram, the sacred diagram that represents the entire universe, the world of the living, the world of the dead, and a cyclical journey between them. The 4 points of the sun's journey, dawn, noon, sunset, and midnight, were all encoded in the geometry of the cloth. To wear such a garment was to embody the cosmos. To sit upon a royal mat woven with these patterns was to position oneself at the very center of the universe. To sit upon the world's balance, the cloth was a microcosm of the entire created order. And the king, by his association with it, was confirmed as the central pillar maintaining that order, the link between the physical and spiritual realms. Raffia was far more than just clothing or currency. It was philosophy, history, and sacred geography, all made tangible through the patient and masterful hands of the weaver. When the Kongo Empire declined and its grand capitals fell silent, a profound question hung in the air. What would become of its art, its soul? Did the intricate patterns and royal textiles, once the very fabric of power, simply vanish into the mists of history? The answer is no. The royal looms did not disappear. They simply moved. They journeyed from the opulent palace to the humble village, from the noble hall to the quiet family courtyard. The grand, roaring symphony of courtly art began to whisper, its secrets passed down not through edicts, but through generations. The art survived, finding refuge in smaller, more intimate circles. It was a story of resilience, of a legacy too strong to be broken. Imagine this journey. A weaver whose grandfather might have crafted a tapestry for a king now sets up his loom under the shade of a baobab tree. The materials might be simpler, the scale more modest, but the knowledge in his hands, the rhythm of his work, is a direct inheritance from that royal past. This wasn't a loss. It was a transformation. The art was democratized, becoming part of the collective heartbeat of the people. In the rural corners of modern-day Angola, Congo-Brazzaville, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, this living history continues. You can find the descendants of those court weavers still practicing their ancient craft. Their patterns, though perhaps less extravagant now, still carry the echoes of royal patronage. You can see it in the precision of the geometry, the balance of the composition, a quiet majesty woven into every single knot. Look closely at a textile produced in a village today. You might see a diamond motif that once signified a specific noble lineage, or a series of interlocking lines that represented the king's connection to the spiritual world. The weaver might not consciously recall the exact ancient meaning, but the pattern itself holds the memory. It's a language that has survived, even if some of its vocabulary has been forgotten. The hands remember what the mind may have let go. This continuity is a powerful testament to the deep cultural roots of Kongo art. It wasn't just a decorative flourish for the elite. It was a core part of their identity. And when the formal structures of power dissolved, that identity didn't just evaporate. It dispersed, embedding itself into the daily lives of the people who were its true inheritors. The looms, once jealously guarded symbols of royal authority, became community treasures. Let's just pause here for a moment. Picture the scene. We are there, in a small village, as the sun begins to set, casting long, golden shadows. We sit back, listening to the faint, rhythmic creak of a wooden loom and the gentle sigh of the evening wind rustling through the leaves. It's a sound that has echoed through these lands for centuries, a lullaby of cultural endurance. In this simple, peaceful moment, we are connected to a history that is both grand and deeply personal. The air is still, The world slows down, and all that matters is the steady, patient creation of beauty, thread by thread. The survival of this art form wasn't confined to the family home or the village market. It found a new and sacred space in the most unexpected of places. The modern church. As Christianity spread through the region, it didn't simply erase what came before. Instead, a fascinating synthesis occurred. Local traditions and beliefs were woven into the new faith, creating a unique spiritual tapestry. Step inside a church in rural Congo today. The architecture might be simple, but your eyes will be drawn to the floor. There laid before the altar, you will often find magnificent raffia mats. The sunlight, streaming through the windows, illuminates their intricate patterns, turning them into pools of golden light. This is sacred continuity, hidden in plain sight. These are not just floor coverings. They are a continuation of the same tradition that once adorned the king's throne room. The same skills, the same patterns, the same sense of reverence that was once directed towards a monarch is now offered in a new spiritual context. The nobility may have changed, the object of veneration may be different, but the fundamental human impulse to offer the best of our craft, our most beautiful creations, to that which we hold sacred, remains unbroken. Think about the significance of this. The very mats that cushion the knees of the faithful as they pray are direct descendants of the textiles that once defined a king's power. It's a beautiful, subtle bridge between the past and the present. The loom, which was once an instrument of statecraft, owned and controlled by kings, now belongs to the people. It serves their faith, their community, their sense of shared identity. And perhaps, in the grand sweep of history, this is the truest destiny of this art, to remind us that real power, like a well-woven thread, is strongest not when it is hoarded by a few, but when it is shared among many. The strength of the cloth comes from the interplay of countless individual threads, each one contributing to the whole. In the same way, the strength of a culture comes from the shared traditions and creativity of all its people. The legacy of elite patronage survives, not in forgotten opulence or crumbling palaces, but in this quiet, vibrant preservation. Every time a weaver sits before their loom, humming a quiet tune as their hands fly, they are doing more than just making a textile. They are participating in a conversation that spans centuries. They echo the voice of a king who, long ago, looked upon a masterpiece and declared, "Let this beauty endure." And it has. It has endured through the fall of empires, through social and political upheaval, through the changing tides of history. It endures in the hands of the weaver, in the patterns of the mat, in the quiet reverence of a village church. Let's pause one last time. The day is done. The stars begin to shimmer in the vast African sky. The night deepens, wrapping the world in a blanket of cool, quiet darkness. Our story, like the day, is nearing its rest. In this stillness, we can almost feel the presence of all the weavers who came before, their spirits woven into the very fabric of the land. Their legacy is not a relic of the past, but a living, breathing part of the present, a promise of beauty for the future. Even as the fires fade and the river slows, the rhythm of the loom endures. It's a pulse older than any empire, softer than song, yet it possesses a strength that has outlasted centuries. This isn't just about making cloth. It's about weaving the very fabric of existence. Imagine the Kongo weavers, working in a silence that was not empty, but filled with devotion. Every fiber they twisted, every intricate pattern they drew from memory, was a sacred act of remembering. It was their way of holding their world together when the forces of time and change threatened to unravel everything. Let's pause here for a moment and just breathe. Picture morning light spilling into a quiet courtyard, An old loom stands there, unused but whole, its wooden frame holding a universe of stories. Dust motes dance in the golden beams, like tiny spirits of the past. The fire crackles one last time beneath the baobab, its embers glowing with the warmth of shared history. This is a space of reverence, a testament to a craft that was more than a skillet, was a spiritual practice. In the quiet concentration of the weaver, the universe found its center. These cloths were never just for covering the body, they were bridges. Bridges connecting generations, linking the wisdom of the elders to the hands of the young. Bridges between rivers and distant seas, carried by traders who understood they were bartering not just in goods, but in culture and identity. And most profoundly, they were bridges between this world and the next, worn in ceremonies that honored the ancestors and guided spirits on their journey. Even now, when you touch a piece of raffia cloth, you are touching more than mere texture. You are touching a philosophy woven into every thread. You're feeling the immense patience it took to create it, and you're connecting with a form of prayer made visible. It's true that museums can preserve the physical fabric. They can protect these delicate textiles from the ravages of time, displaying them in climate-controlled cases for all to admire. But a museum can only preserve the object. It cannot preserve its spirit. That living spirit, that vital energy, is something else entirely. It can only be kept alive by the living. It hums in the hands of a weaver who still sits at their loom today, their fingers moving with an inherited grace. It sparks in the curiosity of a scholar who deciphers the ancient symbols, unlocking their meaning for a new generation. And it blazes in the vision of an artist who takes these timeless patterns and paints them anew on canvas, giving them fresh life and relevance. Look here, a young African artist sits sketching, their charcoal stick flying across the page, capturing the geometric power of a Kongo pattern. Beside them, an elderly weaver watches, a proud and knowing smile on their face. This is not a replacement of the old by the new. It is a continuation, a beautiful dialogue between past and present. The loom never truly sleeps. It simply changes its shape. Sometimes it is made of wood and fiber, its shuttle flying back and forth in a familiar rhythm. At other times, it is made of story and memory, its threads spun from words and recollections shared under the moon. And through all these transformations, through all these different hands and different mediums, one thing remains constant. Africa remembers herself, the patterns, the techniques, the stories. They are all part of a vast, collective memory, a library woven from thread and soul. So, let's rest now, friend. The night is full of whispers, and if you listen closely, you can hear the weaver's breath mingling with the wind that rustles the baobab leaves. The stories have been told, the threads have been spun, and a deep peace settles over the land. We have journeyed far together, exploring the heart of a tradition that continues to beat strongly. Thank you for sharing this time with me, for listening with an open heart. If these stories moved you, consider following our channel to continue this journey into the soul of heritage. You are now under baobab skies.